Good afternoon, USAFA family. Thank you for joining us today for our latest update. And we really appreciate you taking the time to learn about where we are right now with so many different issues. But let me say first, thank you for all the support that we have received so far. Hopefully you know me. I'm Lieutenant General Clark, Rich Clark, the superintendent. And your support for our cadets during this tough time has been overwhelming. Our AOG set up a site for donations, and the response in just a few days was absolutely incredible. We were able to provide care packages to the cadets. Some of them, all of them actually, all squadrons got Keurig machines. They had foods galore. They had everything they could want when you're sort of restricted to your dorm area. So you guys did that, and I just wanted to say thank you. If there is one thing that I got out during this briefing, that's what it was. That's what it is. Thank you for your support. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for caring about what happens here at USAFA. But the thing that I really want to get to for the bulk of this meeting is just to give you some updates on where we are and where we're going with COVID. I know that's probably foremost on your mind. And the first thing that I'll tell you, though, is that this is a difficult time. There's just no question. There's no two ways about it. And it's not just a difficult time for us here at USAFA. This is a tough time for the world. I mean, I'm sure your location where you live right now is seeing some tremendous increases in COVID. And our location here in Colorado on the Front Range is also seeing the same increases. But what I'll tell you is your cadets are really going through a pretty significant time in our country's history. And here's the way I frame it to them. In 20 years, when somebody asks them, where were you during the great pandemic? And they tell people that they were going through the Air Force Academy, that's a story. And they're going to have a story to tell because they are really enduring. They're making it through, and they're doing a great job of wrapping up this semester right now. But they should be proud of themselves. And I don't want to say that this is a badge of honor, but it is. And they should consider that. You know, they are really doing a fantastic job getting through this, given the restrictions that we've had to place on them to keep them safe, to keep our campus COVID free. And I'm really proud of them. The other thing about this is that we have to keep our lines of communication open to you and make sure that you understand exactly what's going on. And I think that your cadets have probably talked to you about a lot of these things, but I want to sort of relay some of the key points to you right now. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about, though, is what our priorities are. And the first and foremost priority is to keep your cadets safe and healthy. The next priority is to graduate the class of 21. We have to do that. That is a national imperative. For the sake of our Air Force and our Space Force and our national security, your senior cadets, your first class cadets, becoming lieutenants is a strategic imperative for us. So we're going to make sure that that happens. And then every other class behind them, we have to ensure that they're meeting the requirements and that they're getting all the things, all the development that they need to get so that they graduate on time in subsequent years, and that we don't let COVID snowball on us and prevent us from accomplishing our mission. So after their health and safety, that's the next priority. And then our third priority right now, really more of a near-term priority, is for us to get them home for a relaxing winter break because they have earned it and they deserve it. They're in finals right now. Some of them have already left because they had a clean slate. They had finals that they could either take virtually or they had no finals at all, and we were able to let them go. And the rest will leave as soon as finals are over. So we're coming close to achieving our third priority of getting them home for winter break. So we're very excited about that. I want to tell you also that our team is committed to your cadet, not only to their health and safety, but also to their development as people, to their care and feeding, to their morale and welfare. And I want to thank our team as well, because some of them are unsung heroes. They go through it. It's very thankless at some point, but our medics, our AOCs, our AMTs, our chef, our cooks in Mitchell Hall, the servers who feed our cadets every day, our instructors, our staff and faculty are all putting in everything they've got to make this work while still keeping their families safe and healthy as well. So I want to thank them publicly, and I want to say that in front of you right now because they're key and instrumental in the well-being of your cadets. The next thing that I want to talk about, though, is what you could expect in the future. And just in general terms, I think that we will start to ease towards more normal times, but as much as we want to be done with COVID, COVID's not done with us. So we still have a lot of work to do. And later on in the briefing, I'm going to give you some particulars about how we're going to return the cadets back to USAFA after a really happy winter break, I hope. But right now, let me just give you the lay of the land on what it looks like when they're leaving so that you have a better understanding of what it might look like when they come back. So we went through a spike earlier in the semester. Actually, it was early November. And we had a number of cadets that got COVID. We were at about around a 4% positivity rate. And that was significant for us. But sometimes when I put it into perspective, Colorado Springs right now is at a 15% positivity rate. So where we were pretty concerned about where we are at 4%, what we knew is that it was worse outside the gates by a long shot. So one of the things that we had to do when we hit that 4% was really restrict the cadets to the base. And that was the only way that we were going to contain it and keep COVID from spreading throughout the cadet wing. The next thing that we did was we tested every cadet. And we made sure that we found where all of our positive cadets were and got them in isolation so that they could get better. And we also got the close contacted cadets, those that were contact traced, and we moved them into quarantine so that they wouldn't infect anybody else. And from that point on, we were really able to contain the virus to a specific part of our campus. They quarantined on campus. And once we got through that, we were able to really draw the numbers down. And I can proudly say, and I'm very proud of our team because we did the math and science on this to really figure out what we had to do to make this happen, but we've driven our numbers down below 1%. And we're hopeful that by the time we get to the end of our finals period, that we'll be down to just maybe a handful of cadets that are still here, either in quarantine or in isolation. But we think that we're almost going to have COVID eradicated so that all of our cadets can go home, travel safely, and enjoy their winter break. So I'm really proud of the team, our math team, our science team, our healthcare providers, and everybody that had a role in helping us to get those numbers down. And this is going to allow us to achieve our goal of winter break. But what does that mean for our return? So that's the big question, right? The one question that we don't know and the uncertainty is how bad will COVID be outside the base? How prevalent will it be? Will we still be in the same condition that we're in now, which will drive certain actions for us, or will the country be in a better place? We're not sure right now. However, we have a plan and we're ready to execute. And I think that our plan is going to allow us to get to as normal of a situation as we could possibly be, regardless of the situation outside the gate. So the first thing that we're going to do before your cadet comes back is we're sending them home with a prescription so that they can get a COVID test. If we can get a COVID test and we know which cadets are positive or negative before returning, it will help us to contain the spread in the cadet wing. So they will have a prescription to go to a Walgreens, a CVS to get that test. And if they're negative, we're going to ask them not to return until they're positive, and they shouldn't travel anyway. So we hope that we can get most of the cadets with that done. When they come back, we will have a restriction of movement period. That's a period where it's basically a quarantine, but we just limit their movement around the cadet wing so that if they are positive, that they don't spread the virus. And the other thing that we'll do on day one when they return is give them a COVID test. And they'll be tested, and we will be able to isolate the cadets that are positive. And hopefully we have no contact trace cadets because we'll test them before they even enter the wing. So we'll test them before they go into the dormitory area, That way we can isolate the positives. All of this will happen 5 through 7 January, and that's when your cadets will return back. And the reason we picked 5 through 7 January is because if you consider 31 December as probably the highest potential super spreader day of the year, New Year's Eve, we know that we're going to ask our cadets to be smart and to be safe and to not do crazy things in a COVID environment on New Year's Eve. But I have an 18-year-old son, and I know how that goes. So some of them are going to go out and they're going to do things and they're going to party and they're going to hang out with their friends or family, and some of them are going to get COVID. Now, if they come back on before the 5th, the problem is COVID has about a 5-day incubation period. So we want to make sure that they come back from the 5th on so that when we test them, we actually know if they really have contracted COVID or not. And if they have, we'll isolate them, let them get well, and then flow back into the cadet wing. And we'll phase that in from 5, 6, and 7 January, testing every day, and then flowing cadets back into the cadet wing. And I think that that will help us to catch as much as we can before we start to intermingle our cadets back here at USAFA. Some of the other things that we'll be doing, we have a new testing regime that we're bringing in to supplement the testing that we've already done. So we're going to have an even better and more robust testing capability so that we can stay on top of our testing. We found that that is probably the most important thing, aside from understanding the math and science behind the virus, but also being able to test so that we know where we are and we understand the prevalence rate within the cadet wing. The most important thing that we can do to keep your cadets safe and healthy. So we've contracted a whole new testing system to supplement what we have, and we think that that's going to be very helpful to us as well. As far as life at USAFA goes, when they come back, again, a lot of that's going to depend on the prevalence rate in Colorado Springs, because if it's still high, we're going to have to restrict the cadets to some point, to some extent at least, so that they're not downtown bringing the virus back into the base. So that's going to drive a lot of it. But I think that our testing, that our knowledge that we've gained from quarantining and isolation is going to really help us to manage this a lot better. And probably the most significant question that a lot of you are answering, and really that our whole country is asking, is what about a vaccine? When are we going to get a vaccine? So that's a good question. And if you have the answer, please let me know, because we're still working on that one. We know that the Department of Defense and our country, for that matter, is working on sort of the tiered approach to getting the vaccine out. And the Department of Defense will have a certain number of vaccinations. A lot of that will go to first responders, will go to people at risk. It will go to groups that I think we all are aware of that would need to get that vaccine early. As far as where we, the service academies, and that's all of us, West Point, Annapolis, USAFA, Merchant Marine, Coast Guard, we will all have a pecking order in that entire system and that tiered delivery of the vaccine. We're just not sure where that is right now. So our plans have to be made without regard to a vaccine, because we can't count on it right now, because the department doesn't know, and frankly, the country doesn't know exactly how that's going to be distributed. So our plan is does not take into account having a vaccine. If we do get it, though, it will be voluntary until it's FDA approved, and we'll make sure that your cadet has every opportunity to make a smart choice on it. Once it becomes FDA approved, very likely that it will be like a flu vaccine and that we'll all get it. But before then, it'll be voluntary. So if and when we do get it, if it's not FDA approved, voluntary. Your cadet will not be forced to take it. After it's FDA approved, we'll see what the DoD guidance is, but I suspect that it would be like any other vaccine at that point, that we vaccinate military members. So given that, though, I'll reiterate one more time, our plans for the return next semester don't include a vaccine, because we have to plan for worst case and be able to execute. Your students will get classes virtually at the very beginning when they're in that restriction of movement period, which is about the first 10 to 14 days of return. And then after that, our goal is really to allow them to go and have class in person and to be able to have the full developmental experience here at USAFA. So we're trying to make sure that we set the conditions so that they can get the complete USAFA experience. The other thing that I want to talk to you about are a couple of items that I know that you'll be looking forward to next year, next semester in particular. And the first one I already mentioned, and that's graduation class of 2021. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I will tell you what my goal is to ensure that our cadets get to graduate in Falcon Stadium in 2021. That's the goal. And if COVID allows it, that's what we're going to do. We're still waiting to see. We're still managing the situation the best that we can, but that is our hope, that is our goal, and that's what we're driving towards. What that will mean, though, is limited numbers of guests if COVID is as it is right now. Right now, we're restricted to only 7,000 people in Falcon Stadium, and that's at this point. It could be lower, it could be more. So what I will ask you to do is, if we're able to get into the stadium, you may have to restrict the numbers of people that you can invite to graduation. And we will get more information out to you early next semester so that you can start making plans. But please know that we are shooting to have the absolute best experience at graduation in the traditional fashion here at USAFA. But again, COVID gets a vote in all this. So please be flexible, and we will make our decision early, though, so that you can make your plans with plenty of time to be able to participate as you desire. And the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about is really just to continue to please support your cadets. When they come home, please encourage them to take the right precautions. Encourage them to wear their masks, to social distance, to stay out of those events that might cause them to contract the virus, and to just protect themselves and your families during their break. I know how precious they are to you, but know that they're precious to us as well. And we want to bring them back safe and sound so that they can continue with their USAFA education and go out and be great lieutenants and serve our country in the fashion that I know that they came here to aspire to. So with that, I will end my planned remarks, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kimberly Tabrugi, and she has picked a few questions that were emailed to us for me to address. And with that, Kimberly.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And thank you to all the parents who took time to write in your questions. We did get several similar questions, so if it doesn't sound exactly the way you worded it, it might be because we've combined questions. So, sir, we've had several parents ask about meals and food options for cadets. Can you tell us a little bit about Mitchell Hall and the different food options that cadets have right now?
So, yeah, the great thing about our team at Mitchell Hall is that they have, and not just Mitchell Hall, but our Air Base wing, they have established I think a system in Mitch's where we have plexiglass that separate our cadets so that we can feed really about half of the cadet wing at a time. So what that means is that every cadet can get that hot meal, and we're able to provide it. So we're very happy about that. And I was able to eat, as well as the other leadership, to eat in Mitchell Hall with the cadets on Thanksgiving. And I have to say the food was fantastic. My wife and kids got to eat there with us, and even our kids raved about it. My wife's feelings were a little bit hurt, but we got over that. And but it was really a fantastic meal. We even hired a new executive chef. He's been on the job now for about 3 or 4 months, I think, and he is just doing a fantastic job. He even made that kind of chunky cranberry sauce. Homemade. It was delicious. I'm a cranberry sauce fan. So, but he did a great job. And all of our meals here on out, he's looking at revamping our menu so that we can get good choices, healthy choices to the cadets. And I think we're in a good place. But the thing that we wanted to get to was to be able to serve hot meals in a safe and healthy environment for our cadets during COVID-19 and to get them that meal that they deserve. food is important to the cadets, and I am learning that every day. And when we weren't getting them the food that they deserved and wanted, morale was down. Having good food, morale took a upturn. So we'll keep providing that.
Great, sir. And I think alumni and parents also helped out and provided a lot of food for cadets just as a morale booster. Is that right?
Absolutely. We get food, the care packages that you provided through your donations, but also just care packages that parents send in has been tremendous. And just seeing what the cadets are able to snack on and eat besides their Mitchell Hall meals has been very impressive. And a lot of that is due to you. So thank you for that and providing that to the cadets.
Thank you, sir. So I know cadets' morale and their overall mental health is your top priority, and you're thinking about it all the time, particularly during COVID and all the restrictions. It's really front of your mind. Parents are hearing that you're spending some extra time with cadets, even sleeping over in the dorms. Do you want to share a little bit about what you're learning living the cadet life again after all these years?
Yeah. First, cadets are really creative in how they use their free time. And a lot of times people ask me, how has USAFA changed over the years? Well, I will tell you, dorm life hasn't changed that much. It's very similar to what I remember. But what I will tell you is that your cadets, they're a lot tougher than people give them credit for. And granted, they are going through some pretty hard times, but they are amazingly resilient. And they have done a really fine job of, I think, navigating through this difficult time, finding ways to bring their own morale up. I mean, I've played chess, I've played video games, I've played ping pong. I've been introduced to games that I never heard of, like Catan and some of these. I used to call it Risk, but they have I could go on and on. But they are doing great things to not only entertain themselves, but to entertain each other and really look out for each other. And I'm really proud of what they're doing there. Now, I won't say that they're not going through a hard time, though. And there's no question, and they'll be the first ones to say that this is tough. And I agree with them. It is tough. I went through the academy in 1986, and I think I mentioned to you before that I had the toughest class to ever go through USAFA until now. And it's hard to imagine going through a service academy under these conditions, but your cadets are doing it, and they're doing a fine job. And when they come home, I just ask you to congratulate them on what they've accomplished, because they really have accomplished a significant feat, and I'm proud of them. So they're doing what they need to do. They're leading each other. They're taking care of each other, and they're doing a fine job. So we'll keep on hanging with them. And I'll do whatever I can, as will the rest of our staff and faculty, to ensure their physical health and their mental health.
Well, thank you, sir. And I think you all taught us a few new dance moves on TikTok, so we appreciate that. Sir, in one of your recent addresses to cadets, you encourage them when they're home on winter break to have a conversation with their parents about the vaccine. And you talked a little bit about that now. I think we've covered that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with parents about that vaccine and the conversation they could be having with their cadets over break?
Well, I would say that the conversation is whether or not they want to get that vaccine before it's FDA approved. And there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I want to make sure that the cadets have every opportunity to talk that over with their parents or their mentors or whoever that they talk about tough subjects with. And I also want them to know that there is no prejudice if they take it or if they don't while it's voluntary. If they volunteer not to take it, that is just fine. And we're going to make sure that we protect them and take care of them just as we do now and as we will always. So the only calculus that should go into that is whether or not they feel safe taking the vaccine. And I just wanted to make sure that you have those conversations with them while they're at home.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Sir, we've announced that we're going to eliminate spring break and in lieu of that have some 3-day weekends. Do you want to talk a little bit about that decision, sir, so parents can understand? A little bit different for us.
Yeah, so the decision to eliminate spring break was a tough one, but when you consider that depending on where a cadet goes, they could or they may or may not bring the virus back with them. But regardless, we have a restriction of movement time that we have to implement when the cadets come back to the wing. that time, like I mentioned, is a couple of weeks. That's a couple of weeks of lost time for us. So that 1 week of spring break really costs us an additional 2 weeks of restriction of movement that we could be working on other things for the cadets to move them towards graduation. And our goal was to graduate on time. May 26th is the day that graduation has been on the calendar for a long time, and we want to keep it there because some people have already made plans. There's reasons to keep it on that date. So having the restriction of movement would inevitably push that date back, and we couldn't afford it. So what we've done, instead of having spring break, is we've added some 3-day weekends into the calendar so that your cadet could get shorter breaks that don't require a restriction of movement after they're complete with those, and to just give them some of that downtime so that they could be out enjoying their time doing the things that they want to do, but really just recharging rather than having it all in one lump at spring break. It's not ideal, and there's no question with that, but these aren't ideal times. And we're just trying to do whatever we can to keep the schedule as close to possible, keep us as normal as we can be. And cutting out spring break was really the only way that we could keep the schedule really intact as it is right now. So I am sorry about that, and I hate the fact that we had to do it, but hopefully those 3-day weekends that we sprinkled out throughout the semester will give them that opportunity to recharge.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Sir, I know we're doing 100% testing for COVID before cadets head home. Can you talk a little bit more about the plan if a cadet tests positive or is in quarantine or isolation right before the break, what those processes will be?
So that's a really good question. So the reason that we tested when we tested every cadet when we did to give them 10 days if they popped positive with COVID, gave them 10 days to recover so that they could leave, because what we couldn't do was allow a positive cadet to travel, to get on an airplane, to get on a bus, or to take it back to their family. So given the time frame that we started the test and the 10 days that it would take them to recover, that allowed them to leave when finals were over. So they may have to stay for the entire final period, but they wouldn't have to stay any longer. So we gave them enough time to recover. And that was important to us, not only for our cadets, but also for our staff and faculty, so that we could manage the cadet wing in a way to prepare ourselves to start the next semester. So I think that given the way that we did this 100% testing, we shouldn't have any cadets here after finals is over. Now, that's in a perfect world. We're still hoping. Our numbers are looking good. We're trending in the right direction. There may be a handful of cadets that don't recover in time, but even then it'll only be a few days. And then we'll be able to get them home so they can get that entire 3+ weeks of winter break. But it wouldn't have been, I think, just from a doing what's right sort of standpoint, we needed to make sure that we were sending healthy cadets home. And that's why we did it. So we're still hoping, we're fingers crossed that we'll have a fully recovered cadet wing by the end of finals period.
Perfect, sir. And we have gotten a lot of questions from parents about whether those tests would suffice for individual states when the cadets are trying to travel home. And we've told each cadet to work with your AOC, understand your particular situation. We've got cadets going all over the country. We really can't figure out every cadet's plan for testing and quarantine for the state that they're going to, but their AOCs are there to help them.
Absolutely. And there's guidelines out there. Our AOCs are digging in, and there's a bit of a balance between, always Department of Defense guidance, CDC guidance, and our team is working hard to make sure that we sort of decipher that for our cadets so they know exactly what they're supposed to do.
Excellent. And so I know you talked about when winter break is over and the cadets come back, that they will have a period of ROM, restriction of movement, as we test again. And then we just don't know yet exactly what the situation will be at USAFA after winter break. It really does depend on Colorado Springs and what the community looks like and what risks they take when they leave base. So I think you've done a good job of explaining that. Is there anything else you'd like to share about what next semester might look like. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but the conversations that you and your leadership team are having, trying to prepare for that.
Sure. So next semester, our goal and the desire is for our cadets to have in-person class to the maximum extent possible, to be able to participate in intercollegiate sports, in debate, in the flying programs, in our jump programs. All of the things that USAFA has to offer, we want to make that available to the maximum extent possible to our cadets. That's the first and foremost priority. If we can do those things, then we're setting up the class of 21, 22, 23, and 24 for graduation on time with all requirements met. The next goal, though, honestly, is to be able to provide those liberties so that the cadets can have that time to go and recharge in Colorado Springs, to go skiing, to do some of those kinds of things. That one is a little less in our control and more dependent upon what goes on in Colorado Springs. The thing that I do know is that we've learned how to sort of manage COVID on our base and within our circle, and to sort of keep that bubble around USAFA. But the problem is we still have staff and faculty that live in town. They have children who go to schools in town, and we have to bring them on the base too. So we're managing really two different populations to try to ensure that all this happens in the right way. So what I'll say is, within the USAFA bubble, I think we're going to be in good shape. When we get into Colorado Springs, though, and we talk about people going skiing and doing other things, that's where it's going to be a little more uncertain. And I'm sure your cadets are concerned about that as well, because they clearly want to be able to go to, In-N-Out Burger, to go to Breckenridge, to do all the things that this area has to offer. We just don't know what that's going to look like right now. So we're working hard to ensure the health and safety of our cadets, and that we have every opportunity to make it as normal as possible.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I know you wish you had a crystal ball, as we all do, but thank you for giving us that glimpse into the future. And sir, that's the last question that we had from the parents. Is there anything else that you'd like to share to wrap it up and close it out?
No, Kimberly, the only thing that I'll use to wrap this up is to say thank you once again to all of our parents. Please know that we care about your cadets. And certainly you're their parents, and we know how much you care about them, and they are the most precious thing that you have. And we realize that, and we understand that, and we respect that. So know that we're going to do everything that we can to take care of your cadets and to help them to achieve their dreams, and to continue to move forward here at USAFA and get everything that this education has to offer for them, so that they're ready to go into life and achieve their purpose. So I want you to be assured that that is first and foremost in our mind every day, all the time, and that we'll do what we need to do to make that come true. So thank you for trusting them in our hands. Thank you for supporting them every day. And I just ask that you stay tuned with us and understand as much as you can about what we're doing here, so that we can work together for the good of your cadet. Thank you once again. And with that, I say have a happy holiday and enjoy the time with your cadet. And we look forward to getting them back and having a great 2021. Thank you. Out here.